We've been in this series of messages on Moses and the excuses that Moses make over and over again when God calls him and says, I want you to basically stand in the gap for me with your people, bring them out of bondage, and lead them to the place that I have for them. You'd think that would be simple. We always want to know God's will, and finally Moses gets a really clear indication of God's will, and instead of celebrating, he goes, who am I? Who am I to do this? And then God says, don't worry, I'm going to be with you. And then he goes, well, who are you then? And tells him that, and then he goes, well, what about them? What if they don't believe? And I'm thinking, so far, those are the Westfall kind of trilogy of excuses right there. And then we come to another one. And this is Exodus chapter 4. And right at the beginning, it says, Moses said, what if they don't believe me? What if they don't listen to me? Or what if they say the Lord didn't appear to you? And the Lord said to him, what's in your hand? He said, I was a staff. And the Lord said, throw it on the ground. And then last week we looked at all these different things that happened. And then Moses said, Lord, I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since we've been talking right here. Obviously, he's not clearly getting through to the Lord because the Lord just keeps pushing him, doesn't seem to listen to excuses. Though neither in the past nor since you've spoken to me. I'm slow of speech and slow of tongue. And the Lord said to him, who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I'll help you speak, and I'll teach you what to say. And Moses said, Lord, please send somebody else. And the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, well, what about your brother Aaron? I know he can speak well. He's already on his way to meet you, and his heart will be glad when he sees you, and you'll speak to him and put words in his mouth, and I'll help both of you speak. We'll teach you what to say. He will speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he were your mouth and as if you were God to him. But pick up your staff in your hand and go. So Lord, teach us how we can live beyond our excuses, how we can be the men and women that you call us to be, in spite of our stuff, in spite of our issues. Give us courage to live beyond them. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, I got to tell you, I've been learning a lot about how difficult it is to not just hear God speak to us and call us to ministry, but what happens when he does and we don't want to go? Isn't it amazing the variety of excuses that we can come up with to push God away? And I think there's always more. And you think after the big questions like who am I, who are you, and who are they, you think that covered the gap, and God answered them all pretty well, right? I mean, we've taken 3 weeks to explore those. And what's he going to do now? Lord, I'm disabled. I can't go. And I think God went, oh, you sure are. Now, it could have been a lot of things, For him, he said he had a speech impediment. So, okay. And it's hard to lead a nation of people when you can't communicate, okay? It's hard enough when you can communicate. It's really difficult when you can't. And God's going, I can help you. I'll be with you. I can help you do what I'm calling you to do. I'll make it possible for you to succeed doing this. Not good enough. Send somebody else. And, this idea that there's something wrong with us, and therefore God can't use us, goes very, very deep. And over the years, as a pastor, I meet with people, and they maybe have a dream for ministry, or they want to get involved, inevitably, it'll get to the point where they'll say, but I really can't because of blah, 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 blah. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too what?
Busy.
Busy. I'm not busy enough. I have no opportunity. You know, it could be anything. I had this one lady who was so sweet. She was late 60s, and she came to see me. This was when I was at UPress, and we ate dinner off her dishes last night. Those were the ones that I cut myself braiding, but anyway, the Limoges china. Anyway, she came to see me, and she said she was heartbroken because her husband of many, many years had filed for a divorce and was leaving her for a younger woman of 65.
Oh no.
And she was about 60, but she said, you know what? All my life, I dreamed of being a missionary, serving somewhere. The Lord could use me in missions, and I never could because my husband would have nothing to do with that. But he's gone now, isn't he? I went, yeah, he actually is. He's totally gone. Well, then maybe I can do this. And so she went out and applied all over for the mission organizations, and they all turned her down because now she was divorced. And I went, she's waited her whole life to do this, and now she can't because of her condition. Couldn't before because she was married. You know, but there's always something, isn't there? There's always something. An excuse, something that tells us we cannot do this. God's calling us to stand in the gap and pray for, well, I don't really know those people. I don't want to interfere in their lives. I don't know what their real needs are. And what if I have to actually talk to them and things like that? And I'd rather stand back and just wish them well. But that's not what God's calling us to do. He's calling us to get involved. And we might have disabilities that are physical and some that are obvious. We might have some subtle ones. We might have emotional disabilities, emotional issues. We might have psychiatric. We might have obsessions or addictions. We might have any number of things that to us are disqualifiers. God cannot use me because of this. And if anyone knew, then we'd really know God couldn't use me, right? And yet, God's question to Moses is such a penetrating one. Remember that? What have you got in your hand? Moses, what have you got in your hand, right? That's the question that God asked. Well, he said, I've got this stick because I walk with sheep in the wilderness. That's what I do. You need a stick like this. It's really important. Great. Throw it on the ground. Well, no, Lord, because you see, I really need this when I'm walking with sheep. I don't want to throw it on the ground because, I could use it should bad things happen or the sheep not pay attention to me in the proper ways and throw it on the ground. And then when he picks it up, it realizes that it's no longer just his stick for walking with sheep, but it's now, it's God's. It belongs to the Lord now. And it's going to be used for his purposes. Now I want you to take that mental picture of Moses throwing the stick on the ground and then having to pick it up in a renewed way. And I want you to think about your own issue. And you don't have to shout it out. I'm not asking you to do that or even volunteer it because you know what it is and I don't have to say it for you. And you don't have to say it yourself. So just keep that to yourself for a second here. But I want you to think about it and go, what issues do I have? What have I got in my hand? What am I carrying with me wherever I go that I think disqualifies me from what God wants to do? It makes it so that I don't have to respond to the Lord because I've got this condition. I always thought that I was defective as a personality and something in my character because I was taught early on that God could never use someone like me. I was actually told that by my pastor growing up. God cannot use someone like you. You have to become like someone else in order for God to use you. So I tried, and I was terrible at being someone else. I totally stunk at being someone else. Trust me, I was not good at that. But I really tried hard, and it wasn't very effective. And it was only when I went, well, this is the way I am, defective or not. I guess, if God can use it, that's great. This is all I got. I've got a weird brain that processes information differently than everyone else. The way I look at things, I could dig a swimming pool in the backyard, but I do it with a tablespoon instead of a, backhoe. It would take me longer, but I can get it done. That's the way my brain works, Ritalin helps, doesn't solve it, but it helps, And, and I've had a lifetime of depression. Always, I can't serve the Lord because I'm a depressed person. I'm a depressor. That's what I do. Every hour of the day, I depress, and God can't use that. And then guess what God did? This is his weird sense of humor. He filled every church I'm in with people who struggle with stuff. Everyone, their minds think differently. They got stuff going on inside. They don't know what ends up, and they come and see me and go, "Oh, I'm better than the pastor." That's my gift. That's my gift. So I could hide it and pretend that I have a sharp mind and that I'm organized, or I can just ask Kay to help me. And I can go on being who I am, and enjoy meeting y'all for coffee. So, but you think about that. What is it that you've got? You think, well, God can't use this because look at this. This is terrible. And if people knew about this, you go, well, throw it on the ground and then pick it up and see what God can do with that. It's transforming. It's very powerful. And this passage is the first time, I think, in all of the Bible where the idea of the wounded healer is brought out. That God uses wounded people. Henry Nouwen wrote a book about it. He's a great Catholic priest, and his book, The Wounded Healer, caught my attention years on because I thought I'm such damaged goods. And then, maybe because I'm damaged goods, God might even be able to use that, And this is the roots of that. Sure, you can't speak. You're slow and mutter. Yes, since we've been talking, you have had a little trouble, and I don't understand you, the Lord says, but I can help you. I can help you speak better. And if that's not good enough, I've got someone in mind who can stand in the gap with you. How about your brother Aaron? Right? He can't do much, but he sure can talk. So bring him along. And of course, in the Bible, I haven't really studied this, so don't take me specifically at it. But I think every single time Moses tried to speak, he got in trouble. And every time Aaron came up with an idea for ministry, it went bad. Remember, it was Aaron who wanted to please all the people. He took the survey and decided, let's build a golden bull, and we'd all worship that. Yeah, that wasn't a good idea. He probably should have waited till Moses came off the mountain and then talked for him instead of coming up with his own idea. But, those things happen. But he had someone, God says, here, don't do it alone. You don't trust that I can help you speak? You don't trust that I can speak through you? Okay, here's Aaron. He can talk. He has crappy ideas, but he can talk. He can talk. Let him talk for you. He said, I'll speak through both of you. Okay. And I want you to see this because this is such a essential foundation for what we do in ministry here at the Harbor, for sure, but anywhere in our life, really. Paul writes in the New Testament, God's strength is made perfect in my confident strength and ability. Remember that passage? Oh, you don't remember that passage? Maybe I got it. It's God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. Yeah. That is the least popular verse in the Bible for leadership. People hate that verse. You can go to leadership conferences all over the country. They never quote that verse. They want you to get fired up and confident and sure and really strong to lead. And it's exactly the opposite of what God tells us. God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. So what have you got in your hand? I've got my weakness. Well, then throw it down. Let's see what God can do. Throw it down. Bring your weakness. That's what you bring to the table. Then imagine how God's strength is going to be demonstrated because we're pretty weak. You look around this room and you go, God better be strong because we don't got a lot going for us. Some of you do, but I'm not telling who. See, Moses he was uniquely gifted. He had all the giftedness and all of the ability to walk with sheep in the desert. He was really good at that and had done it for years. Not so good at walking with people who don't want to follow him and confronting leaders who don't want to do what he's asking. So basically, Moses was completely ill-equipped for what God was asking him to do. And it didn't bother the Lord at all. Don't you wish you could take God aside and say, hey, pick better? Not this one, you know. But God wants him to stand in the gap, and that's what he does. And I think he was worried. I think he's going to go back. Maybe he's a stutter or something, you know. He's going to go back and try and talk to the leaders of his people, and they're going to mock him and ridicule him, and he won't be able to get over the ridicule. Goes to the highest places of power in government and has to, I can't talk. I don't know. They asked me a question and I froze up. It reminded me of when I was at San Diego State, we had a football coach, Don Coryell, who was in the Hall of Fame. He was a real famous football coach, but he was teaching at San Diego State. He was my coach. I was co-ed badminton. John, you were there. Yeah. And so co-ed badminton, and he had to teach a certain number of classes. So he was so impressive because he was always pacing the sidelines, and they had won 57 consecutive football games under his leadership without a loss. And he was a genius. When he came into the class, he had a speech impediment. This strong, forceful, brilliant football coach, genius, Eric Coryell, they called him. He talked like Daffy Duck. You gotta plug him. You gotta you flap the dirt clock. And I'm going, just like that. And I thought, oh, wow, really? And then I found out the football players behind his back called him the Daff. To his face, they called him Coach. But they called him the Daff, Daffy Duck. I think this is how Moses was feeling. I'm going to go in there looking good. The Lord's with me. Everything's great. And they're going to just mock me behind my back. I can't do it. Send somebody else. Send somebody else. Well, I got to tell you, our desire to have other people sent is huge. And because every one of us has limitations. I don't think there's anyone here who doesn't. Jeremy was able to pull up 300 yards of carpet before he went to the doctor and got the cast on his leg. That's good. That shows toughness, you know. But we all have these limitations. And I was thinking about when Harbor Church was just a dream. We haven't actually thought of doing it yet. But the invitation to come out from Minnesota and plant a church, kind of helicopter down in here and plant a church. And I had all these great excuses. I'm too old. That's a good one. I'm not 32, you know. And I don't know anything. And it's been a long time. I don't even know if I speak Seattle fluently anymore. You know, I know these things. You know. And so went and met with Bruce Larson, my old boss, and we had dinner down at Shill Show. And then he said, okay, let me get this straight. And I've told this to you, probably know. He said, let me get this straight. You're thinking about coming out here and planting a church where there's nothing. There's nobody here waiting to see you and support it. Right. You don't even have like a group of 50 people that you can start it with? No. We got me and Eileen and Damien, if he'd come. That's 3, okay. And he said, okay, let me get this right. So you're really old. You've never done this before. You know nothing about planting a church. You've never studied it, prepared, gone to a conference, done anything. No, nothing. Really? And you're going to come out here and you're going to do this. You know nothing about it. You're way too old to do it. This could be the biggest mistake of your life. This could be a ringing failure over your entire life ministry. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, then you have to do it. You have to. You have no choice. You already know how to be a pastor of a big dead church or mediocre church. You know, you can do that. You don't know how to do this. This could be horrible. God must be in it. Now, he was absolutely aware of all of my limitations and was confident saying them to me, which is odd in itself, you know. You have to bring those things out, Bruce? Well, I just want to let you know, I know. You have to do it. And so here we are, you know. Maybe it was the biggest mistake of my life. I've made big ones, you know. This may not even be in the top 10 big mistakes, you know. But the point is, what are we going to allow God to use? To get past our excuses. To get beyond them. To live a life that's an adventure and it's risky and it's dangerous and who knows what's going to happen. God better be in it or we're totally in trouble. Right? It's funny that God, in his anger, said, take your brother with you. Let him talk. He said, you know, God was angry about that. Because he wanted to show Moses that he could do it. He'll teach, he'll make it work. But he said, okay, if that's not good enough, take your brother with you. Now you have family problems. You know? But that was also the beginning of shared ministry, wasn't it? Team ministry. I think that the curse of pastoral church ministry in America, one of the huge curses of it is the need for all competent pastors. Organizational skills and speaking and be friendly and be whimsical and be funny in a serious contemplative way and hang out at the potluck but be in your office praying and studying as you're out calling on people. You know, be a tall short person. And I'll tell you what, you know, that is so not what the Bible gives us, right? It says, you know, you're defective, God says. Now let me use you in ministry. And by the way, here's some other people who can come alongside and take care of the weak stuff. You know what we tend to do? And psychologists will tell you this. When we find out, we take these tests of what our strengths are and our weaknesses and those kind of things. Do you know what the first thing we try and do? We focus on our weaknesses and try and fix them. Right? Let's get our things we do horribly and get them up to really mediocre. Right there. We'll never be good at it, but if we spend all of our time and energy focusing on the bad, we can get it up to piddly. That is so unbiblical, right? Just do what God's calling you to do and bring some people around you to do the rest of it. I think that every single person in this room is called to stand in the gap. With someone, with some group of people, with some nation, with some church, with something, some neighborhood. You're called to stand in the gap. To be a person of prayer and action and presence, right? In spite of our incredible limitations. No one's qualified to stand in the gap. It's just that we're willing to throw our stuff down and pick it up in a new way.